The international Ebola crisis continues to make its presence felt in the U.S.
And now some are calling for the U.S. government to tighten its grip on the borders. Mary Maloney has the latest.
With concerns about Ebola in the U.S., President Obama met with his national security team on Monday. The deteriorating conditions in Africa make it more likely that additional cases of Ebola will appear in the U.S. Thomas Eric Duncan flew from the hardest hit country, Liberia, to Dallas, Texas on September 20th. He later tested positive for the disease and is currently in critical condition at a local area hospital.
Incidents like this are certainly not limited to just Texas. And unfortunately, they will likely happen elsewhere sooner or later.
Duncan's case has some officials, like Governor Rick Perry, pushing for increased security measures at airports and borders. But the challenge will be determining what type of screening could have prevented a patient like Duncan from entering the U.S. in the first place.
All options are going to be looked at is what kind of screening do you do on the entry end, namely when people come in here right now. And that's something that's on the table now.
Also on Monday, a freelance cameraman was taken into isolation at Nebraska Medical Center. He contracted the deadly disease while covering the outbreak in Africa.
And I begged him from a mother's perspective. I said, please don't go. But there was nothing to do. He was determined.
His parents say he was able to walk off the plane with assistance. Mary Maloney, ABC 7 News.
So are U.S. hospitals ready to handle Ebola patients? A new study reveals some startling answers, and Autria Godfrey and Jumi Olabanji have the results.
Well, a brand new survey out today shows that many of the nation's nurses don't believe our hospitals here at home are prepared to handle the Ebola outbreak.
Startling survey results here. In fact, 700 RNs from over 250 hospitals in 31 different states were polled in this survey, and a whopping 80% of them say that their hospitals have not provided a policy for admission of potential infected Ebola patients. Now, to break down these numbers for you, 80% say their hospitals have not communicated to them any policy regarding the admission of Ebola patients, and 87% say that their hospital has not provided education on Ebola.
Absolutely. 1/3 say their hospital has insufficient supplies of eye protection and fluid resistant, as well as those gowns that are needed. And more than 60% say their hospital fails to reduce the number of patients they must care for to accommodate caring for someone in isolation.
Yeah, so this report released by National Nurse Survey, and the reason behind it is because many of these nurses say they want to see hospitals all across the country go ahead and implement an emergency preparedness plan, something they said they are not seeing in the hospitals that they are currently working in.
Absolutely. And Reuters said they talked to a spokeswoman at MedStar Washington Hospital Center, and they say that is something they are working on right now. Of course, the Ebola outbreak overseas, as well as some things happening here at home, is developing news that we continue to cover here at ABC 7 and especially on Good Morning Washington. So make sure you join us tomorrow morning at 4:30. Back to you.
All right, thank you for that, ladies. Coming up at 5 tonight here, more on Ebola in America. Rebecca Cooper will explain what Howard University Hospital is now doing since its scare last week.